Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
You're listening to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Welcome to Loco Listens.
Loco Listens.
Hello, my friends. Today I am joined by a very, very special being. She is the goddess of Tetris. And let me explain first. She has quite an interesting story. She's 35 years old, East Indian, and yes, friends, she is a goddess. She hosts her own podcast series called the Goddess Grill Sessions, which I'm really excited to learn more about today. And as her name indicates, she loves Tetris. So we're definitely going to talk a little bit about Tetris. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories about that special game. And although she's a first generation American born, her culture is very tied into Hinduism, which is a very important culture to the goddess of Tetris. And one thing that you should know about her is that she has a solo adults only OnlyFans page, and that's very interesting. That's something that I am very unfamiliar with, but it would be cool to talk to someone who's doing it to learn more and perhaps break certain stigmas around that type of thing. She's an old soul. She's very spiritual. She likes to inspire others to become sexually empowered, and she's also a great advocate for self-love. Her family, her kitties are very important to her. She's a huge fan of Simon Green, Bonobo, and the dream interview that she would always want is with Bonobo. I'm sure we can manifest that sometime. She loves dancing, romance, erotica, creating art, learning more about topics, especially mental health, and being a voice for the voiceless, supporting others however she can. She is the woman, the myth, the legend, the goddess of Tetris. Welcome to the Local Listens podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You are so welcome. And that was a really fun intro. You sent me a lot of great information. There's so much that I want to ask you, but first, for the ritual question on the Local Listens podcast, we must begin with this. When did you start to speak your truth?
That's a great question. And my comes in like so many different layers and forms. And, you know, I was a first generation American born Indian, like you mentioned. But I think it's really important to mention that my family is from Fiji Islands. And the reason why it's so important to mention that is the Fijian Indian subculture differs greatly from the Indian subculture. But I was raised in a very traditional household, very cultured household. And honestly, I did not feel like I fully live my truth, live life the way I want to. I still, there are some aspects that I don't share with mom or share with the family. Honestly, until I was about 33. I know that's a very long time, but it is quite the journey trying to find the median between your cultural and traditional world and between your new American modern world. So 33 years.
33, better late than never. And that's a very special age to go through a type of awakening process for sure. And it's interesting. You kind of reminded me of a totally different culture, but let's use them as an example. Are you familiar with the Amish and the Rumspringa tradition?
So I am so familiar with Amish, but the Rumspringa, I am not, and I would love to know the tradition.
Okay, so the Amish live without modern tech, and they live closely with animals, close to nature, and then at a certain point in their childhood, they have Rumspringa, where the Amish children can go out to the modern world and experience what that's like, and then they can choose to come back to the traditional world, or they can stay in that modern world. So it's really interesting because your story reminds me of perhaps an Amish person who has experienced this split where they have one foot in the traditional world and then they're slowly experiencing and stepping their toes into this other side of reality, which is very much could be a catalyst for some type of awakening or some type of drama in the family, perhaps. I mean, have there been moments of struggle between you and your family? Has it been easy for you to become the goddess of Tetris, or was this like a very difficult process for you? What would you say?
Oh, that's a really good question and a really good comparison and contrast. The tradition you mentioned with the Amish, um, it was very hard. And growing up, you know, you're 11, 12 years old, you're reaching adolescence, and you want to wear what the other girls are wearing. You want to do kind of what everyone else is doing. And you go home and present these ideas to your family. For instance, at 12 years old, I couldn't go to a dance. You know, I couldn't wear, let's see, 12 years old was like about 1998 back then. So bell bottoms had just come back in style. And I really wanted to wear those so bad to school because all, you know, other girls are wearing them, and I couldn't do that. I now, as an adult, truly understand and realize and appreciate what my parents did. They didn't want me to lose my culture. They didn't want me to go completely American. Even though I'm born in America, I am Indian, you know, and I will always be Indian. And I know that they really wanted me to preserve culture and language, like Hindi is my first language. So growing up, I did kind of feel a bit silenced after presenting certain ideas to my parents at a young age and them not being open. I kind of, you know, I did kind of keep some thoughts to myself. And this may sound silly, but in my head, I would kind of fantasize about being able to do what everybody else could do, like go to the school of dances and like the show Seventh Heaven came out around that time.
Yep.
And I remember seeing one of the little girls, 14-year-olds, and a boy, you know, a guy coming to her door and taking her out on a date. And I thought, wow, what must that be like to be able to do that? Because the things like that were out of the question. Things like your female friends calling you on the phone. You know, the focus was always, you need to focus on education. You need to, I will say, as I got older, you know, my mom became less strict, more understanding. But I definitely, it wasn't until my 20s, I would say. It was really hard, but at the same time, I wouldn't go back and change it. I wouldn't go back and change it. Yeah.
See, those challenges, those struggles really do define us. And it's incredible because in your answer, I can definitely sense that romance is something that you highly value. Like you brought up Seventh Heaven, and I know sitcoms in the 90s are not always like the real authentic representation of romance, but still that's what we would have as kids, seeing these people on TV falling into love and you know, developing stronger feelings for each other. And I'm curious, when your parents you know, when you're growing up and you're starting to talk to boys in high school and things like this, when did you start to realize that you had to rebel? Like, and I don't want to say this as a question that's like, you know, going against your culture, because I do want to recognize how incredible Hinduism is, but I do want to ask you about this rebellious feeling that you've had since childhood.
Sure. And honestly, I never did rebel.
Interesting.
Until I was, I would say about 19, 20 years old. But in high school, I was a good little Indian girl. You know?
Awesome.
In my mind, you mentioned romance. I am a hopeless romantic to the point where I think something's almost wrong with me because I just, perhaps it was the television or the Disney movies, but ever since I was like 5, I've just been this hopeless romantic thought. I did not, however, act on any of it until I was about 20. You know, my dad did unfortunately pass away at a young age at 14. So it was just mom, and mom really just wanted me to focus on education.
Right.
You know, around 20 years old, I feel like my mom started opening up a little bit, and I still didn't tell her everything what kid does tell their parents everything, or what early adult does tell their parent everything, and I still don't. But I was becoming more open, like, hey mom, you know, check out that hot guy at Starbucks or something. And instead of her going, what are you doing? You know, she'd kind of go, yeah. You know?
Nice.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I did hide a lot of my relation with my mom, because in our culture, I'm speaking of the man-made culture, not necessarily the religion of Hinduism.
Okay, that's an important distinction for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it can so easily be confused between the two, but you're not really supposed to, back then especially, date and, you know, the one you bring home, the guy you want mom to meet, that better be the guy you marry.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I didn't truly introduce her to many people. And then as I got a little older, I got a little braver, you know, 25, a little braver, 28, a little braver. At 35, almost 36, I still am. I still am scared of my mom. Respect's a big factor in our culture. But I am so much more open with her, especially in the realm of like romance and guys, you know.
Interesting. So I want to bring up a couple points and then ask you this next question, which is going to be hopefully very open-ended, so you can kind of do with it whatever comes up for you. So first, when you talk about your mother, which is a really beautiful story, how you were both able to open up to each other. And I do recognize that fear of parents and respect of parents go hand in hand, no matter what culture you're from. It's just the fact of like authority and fear, but like not a fear like being terrorized, but more of the fear of like, I don't want to disappoint my parents because I respect them so much. Now, this next question, I want to ask you about what came first, the goddess or Tetris? Because they fit together in such a very cool way. So,
and I'm so sorry, you froze up
no
just
worries,
for a second. I heard the ending of it where you said Tetris.
Right. Okay.
I didn't get the first part of it.
No worries. So yeah, editing is magical. So let me say this. So what came first, goddess or Tetris? Now, obviously, you probably grew up studying the goddesses and the gods and the whole cast of wonderful characters in Hinduism, but how does Tetris play in, and how do they begin to merge in your own personal life?
That's a great question. I love that question. Played Tetris since I was about like 7 or 8. You know, it's a very old game. Came out on the Commodore 64. I've only played pretty much 2 versions. This free. It's like a free Tetris.org. Real simple. You can't do much with it. You can't like whole blocks or do spins or any of this fancy stuff that Tetris players do now.
Right.
And then I went from that to Tetris Effect, which is what I battle now. Have you played Tetris Effect?
I have not. So I've played like some of the classic versions, and I'm also a big fan of the Tetris music. I think it's like a really cool theme. But no, I've not played this version, but I am interested because not only do you run an OnlyFans, but you also stream the Tetris battles, as you call them, on Twitch, right? You're a Twitch streamer as well.
Yes, I am. And going back to what you're saying, upon starting streaming, which was 2 years ago,
oh nice,
I grabbed a selfie stick, I grabbed my phone, and I saw Twitch, and I just immediately related Twitch to gaming. The only game I've ever been good at and ever really enjoyed is Tetris. I've obsessively played Tetris. I asked you if you watched or if you played Tetris Effect because of the music and the visuals. It's like getting stoned and playing Tetris Effect. That is like my thing. It's like you're at it's like you're at an EDM.
I gotta try
concert.
that sometime. Yeah.
Yes, you should.
Let me know when you're streaming next.
Yes. So I named myself Tetris Goddess originally, and it changed to Goddess of Tetris because I lost 2 accounts. That's another long story. But because I thought as a Twitch streamer, I need to be connected to gaming. But I like to do a lot of things. And I've had, kind of people say, hey, Tetris, you should stick to one thing. And I'm like, but I love talking. I love playing Tetris.
So
I
you're
love
not
being
just playing
romantic.
Tetris. You're
No, and I'm just
Interesting,
like, I love people and I love, sensuality. And it's just like, so I just did it all. So the goddess, I would say, came first.
Okay.
And then I kind of immersed into the Tetris and just threw it all together. And,
Nice.
here I am.
Nice. Okay, so let me ask you this. You brought up a couple points about, I guess you could say you were shadow banned or you were canceled or, something happened to those earlier accounts. So what was your initial reaction? And then like, how did you respond? Because obviously you did not give up and you've been very successful. And I've seen you, you were on Sam Tripoli's Zero podcast, which would be a cool conversation to talk about what that was like. But first of all, just tell me, you got shadow banned. I can kind of assume why, but would you like to tell the story of what really happened?
I'd love to tell the story because I think it's important.
Yeah.
When I started streaming, I didn't know how to set things up. Still don't really know much. I mean, I can just I can get Tetris on there now, and that's it. But I was on my phone, and I was wearing lingerie, but a baby doll type, which differs greatly from just kind of showing everything. I showed cleavage, and I love romance novels. I write romance stories too.
No way.
So so I'm gonna read out of my romance novel. And I became affiliate very quick. And then the shadow ban occurred right on that, and I felt very devastated. One of my main main devastations and main frustrations was I couldn't understand why I was shadow banned.
Right.
Yet there are so many other amazing, beautiful women that show a lot more skin than I did at that time. If I was going against the rule, sure, I will fully admit,
Right.
reading romance novels in your laundry on the couch, okay, sure.
But these other people were doing the same thing.
Yeah, so I just couldn't understand. And there's no hate to the women who do that.
Right.
My bone to pick with this Twitch.
This is Twitch. Yeah, exactly.
Why is a woman allowed in a thong bikini and she's making you guys tons of money? I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And I felt so devastated because I kept writing to them and it was like an automated response. It was as if no one was actually reading. And I kept thinking, I love streaming. I want to keep up with it. So I thought, hey, create an IG account and jump on IG Live. It was hard because Twitch allows you to get income, and you have like a certain audience on Twitch. But I knew I didn't want to give up. And I did keep writing to Twitch. And one time I got an answer that there was somewhere along the lines of it should fix itself, literally.
Very helpful.
Yeah. And, I started doing Tetris battles, and a shadow ban on Twitch is so detrimental because no one can see you. They don't get notified when you're on. And yesterday, almost 2 years later, I did a Tetris battle, and everybody there was like, Tetris, you're no longer shadow banned.
Yeah. Oh, yes, congrats.
Like
2
my
years
friends
later.
Yeah, my friends on IG created a little hashtag that said free Tetris,
Free Tetris. Oh,
yeah. So I appreciate you asking that and bringing up that I didn't give up, because I would love for other people to take away, like, you will come across discrepancies, you will come across problems, but you have to just keep going if that's what you want to do. And I knew that I wanted to continue doing what I did, and now it's lifted, it's something that I never thought would happen.
All I had to do was hang on. Yeah. That's incredible. And this is a perfect segue. So earlier when you were speaking about your childhood and, we brought up the topic of fear, and you reminded me of someone I love very dearly in my family, is a college professor. And so when he's teaching, he asks every student at the beginning of every year, what is your biggest fear? And then what is your greatest passion? So we've already talked about fear a little bit, and obviously like the fear of getting shadow banned or having your business getting shut down would also be pretty shitty as well. But I want to ask you about your greatest passions. Now, I didn't know this, that you were a writer, a novelist. So that's clearly got to be one of your passions, and one that you love so much that you were sharing it live on Twitch. So would you like to tell me about some of the early days when you first started writing and sharing some of your writing? Because that's a big theme on this show, is speaking your truth. So that's pretty cool that you were sharing those types of stories. Would you like to explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. I started writing actual like little romantic stories from a very young age. Like I said, I'm a hopeless romantic to the point where I think something's wrong with me. I even brought this up with
well, thankfully that makes two of us. So yeah, we're on the Loco Listens podcast. You know, if you feel a little crazy, it's because you're in the right place. So yeah.
And I love that. Who needs normal, right? And I just recently came across this story I wrote in 7th grade, which was 24 years ago. And I am still friends with that teacher. And I sent it to her, and I go, it made me cringe to read it. Obviously it wasn't an erotic story, not at 11 years old, but it was a little romantic story. And I have been writing ever since. I got into erotica, I would say like I was around 20 is when I started writing it down. I didn't post it anywhere. I don't read erotica, or do you read erotica stories at all?
No, I'm not too familiar. I mean, so I used to work at Walgreens, and they would have these erotica novels on the side. Like, they have got like all the cigarettes on the back wall, and then they would have like Cosmopolitan magazine, and then they would have these erotica novels, and the covers are very attractive. They've got some nice covers, but I never actually opened them. But what do you think most people assume about erotica in this genre? And now that you've been creating your own stories, I'm sure you can share a bit about what people could expect when they open this kind of book. What would you say?
I feel that people just have this misconception that like erotica or romance novels is like a porn, just like the same misconception people have about the Karma Sutra, that it's just like raunchy, just dirt. No, as a matter, and everybody's different. I strive to try to show the world that you could write erotica, you could talk about sex without using what I deem derogatory language.
True.
Language is huge for me. And as I got older, I realized, I'm like, why do we use such hideous language, what I deem hideous, for such a beautiful thing?
Right.
Like the word fuck. Why is the word fuck used to describe sex? Like, I'm gonna go deep with you. I'm gonna go real deep.
Let's do it.
People don't think about this because I think today's world, we're so desensitized.
Absolutely.
Because we have access to porn. We can see anything we want. We wear anything we want. We do anything we want, which is okay.
Right.
But people have forgotten that the closest two human beings can physically be is through sexual intercourse. And if you think about that, isn't that something quite spectacular?
And it's kind of funny that we would use a word like fuck to describe something so sacred. And what would you say for anyone who doesn't understand? Like, I totally vibe with you. I completely see how, like, okay, so you brought up the Kama Sutra, and on the surface level, it just looks like a book full of sex positions, but that's clearly not the truth. And would you like to talk about maybe possible solutions to address not only the overstimulation of modern culture with porn and things like that, but also like maybe the misconception about the goddess herself and this connection with the divine that can be accessed through making love? What would you say?
Yeah, like I really, my wish for people is to go deeper with it. Go, you know, the Karma Sutra was originally invented not just for the pleasure aspect of it, for mental health, for depression, because pleasure and the pleasure of sexual stimulation, that's good. It's mind, body, soul kind of connection. And I am just looking at my notes real quick here because I did want to add that the Karma Sutra attributed to a Hindu god Shiva, and his lover Nandini, and it's the book was composed based on the Vedas, which is one of the oldest Hindu texts. So the Karma Sutra deals with spirituality, and the goddess there is mentioned in a lot of Hindu mythological texts. I put that in quotes because to me it's not myth. It's not myth. I believe it all happened. But the art of making love and pleasure and tantra and all, it's just, I feel like we are so far from that. There's no connection. And there is such a huge community of being sex positive right now. And I completely appreciate, understand, and anybody should be allowed, as long as it's consensual, to express themselves. But I want people to stop seeing sex as just sex, and remember that sex and love it's okay to connect the two.
It's much better to connect the two.
It's so, I was flabbergasted the other day upon talking to a young woman that was so offended at a first date and a man bringing her flowers, because I'm like, God, it was over the moon. And she thought it was weird and creepy, and she was offended that he didn't sleep with her on the first date. So the act of the affection and the act of care of bringing the flowers was creepy, but the act of not sleeping with her on the first date was offensive. I think there's something really wrong with that.
Well, let me just say this: whoever that man is who brought her flowers, good for him. He's doing it right. Hopefully he can meet someone who will appreciate his version of romance, because that sounds a lot like something I would do. But
I love that.
I want to ask you this, and I'm not sure if you've spoke about this before on a podcast with other men. This does apply to women as well, but since you have a very unique perspective, I'd love to ask you this. And I've shared a bit about this on other shows, but especially in 2020 to 2021, I had just moved into my very own apartment, and I was all excited. I was like moving out of my parents' house, and I was gonna find a nice lady and like live my own life without having anything to worry about. I had privacy, all that. But because of COVID, it didn't really work out so well, and like not many people were down to hang out. So I spent a lot of time alone. And to be honest with you, Goddess, I was definitely I became addicted to porn for quite a while. So I felt cut off from the love. There was still plenty of sexual pleasure, and that was never an issue. There's plenty of that to go around, but without love, it became draining, and slowly and surely your energy just drops quite a lot. And now there's a lot of men out there who are supporting each other to overcome this addiction. There's the no fat movement, or there's just an interest in energy cultivation. So is this something that you're familiar with? Can you speak on this topic, especially not only for men, because this can happen to women as well, but the overindulgence of sexual pleasure can be detrimental without a source of love behind it. What do you think?
You know, I think it's amazing that you talk about, you know, what happened and what you experience in being addicted to porn. And I think a lot of men and women go through that. And I completely agree that the overindulgence of sexual pleasure, minus the affection, the love, and the tenderness, can be very detrimental to a person. I myself, I've mentioned being, you know, a hopeless romantic. I wasn't addicted to porn, but kind of addicted to hot guys, you know,
Okay,
like just
sure.
you know, and not in the sense of not in the sense of sex, but just kind of in the sense of, oh God, what would it be like? What a night would, you know, it just, my mind, and that stems from childhood and
the
all these,
imagination is very powerful, like
the
just like when you're telling
imagination
a
is,
story, right?
yes, the imagination is very powerful. So I then in turn took that energy and, you know, started an OnlyFans to try to express myself in that way, or perhaps, you know, write down whatever I'm kind of thinking about or whatever thoughts I'm thinking in my head. I think it's amazing that you've spoken about it.
Thank you.
Sam actually also spoke about that, which I thought was very big. And I have talked to many people who, both male and female, who have experienced it. Talking about it, I think it's just great on its own. Just, you know, we all, we all have things, you know, that we overindulge
We're all
in, that
working
we
on
deem as
something.
unhealthy. You know, weed is that for me. But again, whole nother topic. I could talk to you for hours and hours.
Oh yes, well, I'll have to have you back on the show sometime, or I'll come on your show, because that is a great topic. That's like the ganja goddess herself is another interesting character to interact with, for sure. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I'm glad that Sam is talking about it too. Like, I've heard him speak about it on Tinfoil Hat, and it's a great topic to address, because, you know, it may not be porn, it could be like listening to music that is degrading the sacred sexual act in some ways. You know, it's not always like honoring this beautiful thing which brought us all here. It could be degradation. So it seems important to think about how to merge the sacred and the sexual. And I'm curious, when you're creating your OnlyFans, what was that experience like in the very beginning? Like, and I'm sure, just like, you know, becoming the goddess of Tetris and doing this, creating this persona, this online persona, I'm sure it must have been interesting, difficult, exciting, and fun, all in one beautiful package, starting this OnlyFans channel. So like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was everything that you just mentioned. My first stream ever, my first stream on Twitch that I mentioned, I was on there, a lot of people really nice, very complimentary, and then a guy comes on there and calls me fat. And I'm very sensitive. I don't think there are women out there that aren't sensitive about body, you know. And I started crying on the stream.
Oh no.
And, you know, I got off the stream, and it's crazy how you could have so many people compliment you, and then that one comment can really mess with you, you know. And then I fixed my makeup, and I got back on, and I never looked back since. And another person that same night also made a fat comment to me. And again, there were hundreds of people that say nice, very flattering things, but those things can really affect you. And in the Indian women are usually don't have curvy body types like I do, especially younger women, but I always did. So I always kind of heard things from family, not immediate family, but just always like, you know, what man's gonna want you, you're not skinny, you're blah blah blah, just all kinds of things. So there was that fear, you know, there was that fear, because you're showing your body to the world, and you're showing your body to people who can say whatever they want. They can say whatever they want, but
It's hard to
in
get
my
more vulnerable than that, honestly, right? It's
right, right. In my journey of self-love, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect or that I don't have some insecurities here or there, but in my journey of self-love, I really truly learned to love every part of me for what I am and who I am. Because if I did want to make any changes, that unless I love myself as I am. And I got brave. I was really nervous. So my stomach, because I have like it's called a B stomach. I'm just like, it's not like one stomach, it's like two stomachs. So that is my stomach, and I love my stomach. So I was really nervous.
Own it.
You gotta own it. And I was really nervous, and when I showed it, people were like, we want to see more. So it was a good experience on OnlyFans. I also set a price to where not everyone can access me. I set a price to where people who really want to see that side of me will do so.
Right.
Because not everyone will pay. I get complaints all the time, it's too high. And I say, well, I can suggest this content creator, this content creator for you.
But here's my price.
Yeah, I'm not desperate for the subscription. I only want people who want to be there. Aside from those aspects of me, it's so empowering. Aside from that sphere of what are people, it's so empowering. And I've had, in the 2 years that I've been doing this, I've had women all over come to, women that I had no idea even cared or paid attention, tell me that they've started, an OnlyFans or something of that nature after seeing me. And or I've had other women who have a curvy body type like I do, and say that they were too scared, and then they saw me do it. And that is what counts. That's what matters.
For sure. Well, it's so cool, because I think it's a little obvious that, you would attract male attention, and that these guys, whether they're complimenting you or they're trying to shame you or whatever, being creepy, whatever they might be doing, that is a given, right? That's what you might expect on OnlyFans. But I was really it's really touching to hear that other women would reach out to you and be like, hey, you've inspired me. I love what you're doing. Thank you for being open with what you're doing, because you're helping other women who want to do the same thing. And it's cool, because I understand the stigma of being OnlyFans is kind of like a reflection of what modern society has turned into, which is like, just like you said, perhaps a very desensitized sexual culture. But at the same time, it's given you and other women the ability to own their own business, to be their own business owner, and to take more control over not only your own body, but also what you can do with your own body. And it's pretty interesting. And I'm curious, were there any other inspirations for you personally? Because I can definitely see how you would inspire others, but who was inspiring you in the beginning or on this 2-year journey that you've been speaking of?
That's a great question. And thank you, by the way, for the compliments.
Of course.
I was completely blind when I went in. I honestly, not to say that there aren't women out there who inspire me. I can name several goddesses now that I've met that inspire me all the time. I call them my sisters, my IG sisters. However, when I started, it really was just me. And it really was the inspiration of wanting to show something slightly different. You had mentioned other women, and I did want to touch upon one thing I've learned in my journey with OnlyFans is, unfortunately, there are a lot of women who call themselves degrading names on OnlyFans, or do things or create content for the sake of a sale, or the sake of and not being true to themselves. I do love that I have the opportunity to change some of their minds.
For sure.
You don't have to call yourself a slut and a whore. You don't have to do things with other women if you're not sexually attracted to them. You don't have to do things with anybody. You can go on OnlyFans and take a bunch of selfies. You know, there, you can make it your own. And I just
Maybe I'm gonna make one.
You should. Yes, I will so tell you what hashtags to use when you promote it.
Oh, cool! I will definitely hit you up for that.
Yes, you should. I think anyone should. I just think people should be true to themselves.
Right.
And I'm inspired dating so many amazing women. But when I started, I literally had no idea what OnlyFans was, nor had I spoken to any other creators at that point.
Interesting. And once again, perfect segue. You're such a great speaker, and it's no surprise that now you've started your very own podcast. So all goes back to language, like you said. You know, if you call yourself a goddess, you're going to empower yourself. And just from doing what you're doing and, when people say you do you, like your vibe attracts your tribe, it's like, well, being a goddess as you are, you're going to attract other sisters into your tribe. So tell us about the Goddess Grill Sessions. It's such a cool podcast name. Yes. I'm excited to learn all about it.
Thank you so much for liking the name. I can go back and forth with the name because it's long, but I started on IG solely promoting my OnlyFans. And I mentioned earlier about losing 2 IG accounts.
So it wasn't just Twitch, it was IG.
Wasn't just Twitch. No, this is my third IG account. And upon starting, I didn't know what direction I wanted to go. Also, I had, like many other people, lost my career due to COVID. So making money was at the forefront of my my goals, my objectives. And I solely kind of just advertised my sensuality, not truly showing who I was. And when I did streams, then I did just kind of solo, just chatting streams. Because I do love to talk, I'm sure, as you can see.
I love it.
Yeah, thank you. And I had a friend, an IG friend, a male friend that was very supportive and nice, saying, "Hey, Tetris, you are so much more than that. You're so much more than a pretty face or a beautiful face." And I won't lie, as I am I'm a Cancer, at first I felt slightly offended. Because I felt like, well, what do you think I do? Like, that I just sit there? That's not what I'm trying. And I realized what he was trying to say. He's saying what you come off as is just a person who's kind of just sitting there looking beautiful. And he knew me, the person, that I'm so much more than that. He goes, "Why don't you try showing a little bit more about yourself?" And in my old career, I was a manager and I interviewed people and I loved it. I love grilling people. And so I love grilling people. When I interviewed people for the career, I never pre-did any notes or anything. I just sat there, stared them in the face and asked questions. So I decided to interview. I started off with Twitch streamers and it went from, and I've interviewed an America's Got Talent finalist.
Nice.
And then I knew I wanted to discuss certain topics. I think there are many different forms of podcasts, but I will say I have mainly heard podcasts where they're kind of free conversation about topics, and those are great. But I love certain topics. Like, I've done the podcast on Greek mythology.
Nice.
Like St. Patrick's Day. Different. I have one coming up on Kurt Cobain.
Cool.
Nirvana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Courtney Love totally killed him, by the way. It's all right.
I totally think so too. And so things like that, it developed into this interview series / podcast series. And the friend that suggested, I tell him time and time again, thank you, because you're right. You're right. And I got so sick of being looked at as just content. And some people when you are an OnlyFans creator or something similar, or you're a porn star or a stripper, some people just kind of see you as content, and they forget that you're a person. You know, you're not always thinking sexual thoughts. You're not always in the mood.
Yeah, you're not a product,
always...
you're a person. Yeah.
Exactly. So coming up, being a hostess and having Goddess Girl sessions has eliminated some of that. Some there still is a lot, but
a work in progress for sure, for all of us. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'm really happy to have that show, and I'm really happy to show the world that I am so much more, than just advertising OnlyFans.
Awesome. Well, I am very excited to have a listen, and I can tell, you're probably really good at grilling people, and you're probably an awesome manager, but I'm so happy that you found a different path, and one that speaks to you, mind, body, and soul. And it's really cool because, well, it is true. You are much more than just your physical looks. And by the way, you are beautiful, but I do want to say,
thank you so much.
As soon as we started chatting, I was like, wow, she is intelligent. She's brilliant. Like, I can tell you're full of stories. I'm really looking forward to that Kurt Cobain episode. And speaking of the mythology that you brought up earlier, or, the reality, because this is something that I've been waiting to ask someone in the Hindu tradition, if you will. So you can see my shirt. It's got some UFOs on it. It's a classic, the disc-shaped UFOs. So I'm sure... Can you tell us about the Vimanas? Is that how you say it? These craft, or these vehicles? Is that what they are?
Yeah. And I have done a podcast on aliens, by the way.
Okay. Awesome.
And and I must say, I unfortunately don't know much about the Vimanas as but I do know that those vehicles and that technology were created long before
ancient tech. Yeah.
Ancient, so long before human beings had the technology to do something like that. And I 110% think that we are not alone as human beings, and as with animals, we're not the only species, and I do think it's alien technology. And I do sometimes think that aliens, or the Anunnaki, which again, we can go for hours and hours, are the Hindu and the Hindu gods and goddesses. I connect them with the two just because Hinduism is the oldest,
right? It's like the OG.
It's the oldest religion of the world. So I think there's a connection there, and I apologize for not being more.
No, it's all right. So here's what we should do then, Tetris. Maybe we can do another show sometime, and we'll talk about the Vimanas, because there's another part of it too. This topic relates to, and I'm sure you've seen this, on the atomic bombs that were allegedly dropped in Japan. They had the inscription from the Bhagavad Gita. I am the creator and the destroyer. I think I'm paraphrasing, I'm butchering it, but yeah, I mean,
no, you're actually completely right.
Okay. Yeah, it's like the alpha and the omega, right? The creator and the destroyer. So that's something I've wanted to ask you about. And if you want to save it for, perhaps we can do like a deep dive together. That'd be cool. Anything else on that you want to add before we wrap up to the conclusion here?
That again, that I just think that at this point in time in life and in the world we live in today, I think that if human beings say that we're not alone, I think they're in deep denial, or that there isn't something out there, despite anyone's religious views or anything like that. I think
they could be afraid of finding out that there really is.
That proves that we're not alone. And I'd be honored to talk to you, and to go delve deeper into the Vimanas and anything, aliens, anything.
Let's do it. I mean, like you said, the Hindu tradition is the oldest of all of the spiritual traditions, so it's definitely worth diving into. I've really only checked out the Bhagavad Gita. I probably only absorbed like 3% of it because I didn't have the right kind of guidance, but there's a lot we could talk about. And I do want to say, Tetris, that whatever we do talk about in the future, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm so totally honored that you came onto my podcast, and it's been a true blessing to speak with you. So Before we wrap up, we have a ritual final question.
Sure.
If you could think back to your past self, whether that was who you were yesterday or in the 90s, as far back as you want to go, your past self is looking for some kind of guidance. If you could go back and give your past self some kind of advice or tips or some kind of message to motivate them, what would you say to your past self?
I love that question, especially because it's something that I think about often. And I would go back to when I was in high school, because it was a really hard time for me, as far as being a woman, a young woman, because I really did, and I really didn't truly like who I was. The nerdy girl that, never got the guys, but that got out everyone. The guys always asked me for help on their homework, basically. I would tell my old self, you're a fucking goddess, and you need to be you. And if people don't like that, screw them.
Right.
You're gonna fucking be a hostess on a show and do beautiful makeup one day. And these same guys, this is a true story, by the way, Jake. Those same guys that make fun of you are going to be begging for your attention one day, and you're not going to give it to them because they're ugly on the inside. So I would tell my past self, be you, love you, because you're a goddess.
I love that. That is such a cool answer. And you just reminded me, I close out every episode in the outro. So, please listen for this when you go back. I always say this last message at the very end of every episode. I always say, wherever you are, be here, be now, and be you. And I appreciate you. You've been totally authentic this whole hour that we've been speaking. I can hear it. I can feel it. And I am very proud of you for all that you've done to empower yourself and empower others. And I appreciate what you will continue doing with the Goddess Grills sessions. Can you please share with us, where can we find your podcast? How can we connect with you, Tetris? It would be an absolute pleasure to stay in touch with you. So please share with the audience, how can they find you?
Yes, thank you so much. Currently, my podcasts are solely on IG. My IG handle is Goddess of Tetris. I have schedules posted as to when my podcast will go live, and they are all saved under the IG play button. And in the future, I'll get them on YouTube and all that good stuff. But currently, it's on IG. I really appreciate you having me as a guest. It went by so quick.
It really did. That was a fast hour. One of many, though. We will do this again, to be continued. And once again, folks, it's the Goddess of Tetris, sorry. She is the host of the Goddess Grills sessions, the hostess with the mostest. And she came, as Sam Tripoli says, she came and she dropped the hammer of the goddess today. So I appreciate you being here once again. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, you guys.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us in the outro to episode 19 of the Loco Listens podcast. And wow, what a cool soul, Tetris Goddess. I can't believe we had this opportunity to speak. It's been unreal, unbelievable, incredibly profound. And I'm so happy you were willing to come on to my show and share your story, because I am assuring you for sure there will be people listening to this story who will definitely connect, who will definitely relate, and who will definitely feel inspired and empowered by your wisdom. And you have a lot to share. You have so much to offer, Tetris, and I'm really blessed that you came on here to share yourself with all of us. And with that being said, there's something else too that we spoke about earlier, which was the Vimanas. And there are tons of Hindu stories and parts of mythology of the story of the pantomime characters. I am so excited to get into it. So I know for a fact that Tetris and I will be doing many shows together in the future, perhaps even a monthly special. So stay tuned, folks. That'll be really fun. But please make sure you guys go support Tetris Goddess. You can easily find her on Instagram, and she will be doing Instagram lives, which are really cool. You got to pop in there, say hello. And please check out the Goddess Grill sessions. It sounds really cool. I'm going to be making a guest appearance very soon. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to get grilled. I love being a guest, so this will be very, very fun. But anyways, folks, hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks again for joining us. And if you want to join the conversation on Telegram, please feel free. Just bring your dankest memes. You can share videos, songs, whatever you want. Just come as you are. You can find us at t.me/Loco Listeners. That's the Loco Listeners community, the LLC unofficially. And I'm really excited to have so many people in there sharing their memes, not only memes, but just their stories, their insights, their revelations. So appreciate you guys, and I'm looking forward to getting back in there soon. There's always a lot of messages to catch up on each group that I'm a part of, whether it's Chance from the Interverse, he's got his group. There's the Weaving Spiders Welcome group. There's a lot of cool stuff. Mark from My Family Thinks I'm Crazy has his own group. And overall, guys, if you're not on Telegram, you should be on Telegram because there's a lot of cool people out there. It's a really great social platform that emphasizes the social aspect because, folks, let's be honest, we got to put the social back in social media. So hop on Telegram. I hope that the Tetris Goddess herself will be on Telegram as well. That'd be really cool. Anyways, Goddess Grill Sessions. Make sure you guys check out her podcast. It's going to be cool. And without further ado, I will leave you with our special message today. Wherever you are, be here, be now, and be you.